So I'll call the meeting to order. And we'll start by acknowledging we're on the homeland of the many diverse First Nations and Métis people who have walked this whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial. We are grateful to work, live, and learn on the traditional territory of Treaty 8. And we'll move on to adoption of the agenda in the form of a couple of updates. Number one is advice from officials, which would be under 18.1, as specifically ICF and contract negotiations.
So who are the officials?
I'm not sure who would be the officials that were.
Officials as defined under FOIP, so that could be anyone, including the CAO. Could be a lawyer, could be a consultant of the town, it could be any of those I refer to as officials.
Okay, anything else? All right, can we get a motion with those two amendments?
So in this particular case, you're right, Bill, that it could be anybody. In this particular case, is it a lawyer or a CAO?
That will be disclosed in the in-camera portion of the meeting.
Okay. Secondly, can we, besides the item that you have on tap, is there anything else that we can add to the in-camera session?
Well, we talked about if council wanted to add things, we were supposed to talk about it beforehand and get it going, right?
Well, we did talk about this beforehand, though.
Well, no, but this was coming from the CAO, right? The councilors wanted to add things. That's what we decided as a group. We talked about that. Well, how to add those things to it.
I thought it was an open session and if we needed a response, but in camera where there's no response necessary, there's no response really, like I'm not looking for, I need this done. It's in camera, first of all. So I thought it was, the discussion was if we needed a response, like, hey, I need this done. We're caught off guard, it's, so we're not prepared, but this is not a preparation item. It's in camera, first of all, so it's only for council and in camera. So it's not like we can't say, don't know, or we're not in the public eye.
I'll throw it open with how would council like to proceed on that, if you given that, we talked about if we wanted to add in camera items to bring it up to myself or the CAO beforehand. But yeah,
Perhaps through the chair to start off, under the procedural bylaw, the CAO is responsible for the creation of the agenda. Throwing an item on without adequate time for me to research it, I think is inappropriate. I'll leave it up to council.
well, we did have that discussion before because we wanted to make sure that everybody had a way to add them because we didn't, heard that it wasn't fair just to add it last minute without some consultation and knowing what it was about.
Neither one of these requires research, though. They're actually both directed to you, Mayor, so there's not a question for the CEO. Well, actually, no, that's not true. There is one for the CEO, but it's really easy. It's not like a research question. It's just more a curiosity thing. I can ask it in open session, but you probably wouldn't want me to do that.
Again, I'll leave it to council what you want to do with this.
I guess that last statement indicates to me that there should be an opportunity for preparation. If it's something that you are uncomfortable or will make others uncomfortable with bringing up in an open session, we need prep time, and it would be an adequate ask to have you approach the CEO and ask to have it put on the agenda.
No, I think you're misreading it, John. It's not an uncomfortable thing. It's just not appropriate. Like, how last time I asked a question about some hockey thing, the CEO probably said, hey, that was discussed in camera, so that's what I mean. Don't jump to the conclusion that it's necessarily uncomfortable item. It's just an item that I don't think I should ask in open session. But amongst council, I have no problem asking amongst us. Like, we should be able to speak. I don't understand why we're going in camera anyway, it's not an additional ask, can I add a couple of items and put an 8.2, section 24? It's somewhat personnel related, it's for all of us actually to know, to ask the question.
So if I could, through the chair, ask the councillor, what section are you requesting to go?
24 personnel,
That's not the appropriate for section.
17 then, it's either 17 or 24.
I'm just a
Council
little,
needs to be aware of what the correct request is.
No, I'm a counselor, I'm not CAO, I mean,
That's why I think
It's one
you
of-
should consult with the CEO before.
you're making it difficult, but I'll let it rest, let it be noted.
yeah, Counselor, you were, I guess, the one that really wanted to make sure that everything was sort of vetted so that we knew. So now you're,
All of the
You're
things I
changing.
wanted, Mayor, have not happened. I reached out to you
This is-
multiple times. You've not been able to come to any sort of like collaboration and move forward. All of the things I wanted were contingent on that, and that's not happened, so.
absolutely, this was one of the things that you had asked for. This was what you had asked for, and now you want to change it. That's why, this was what you wanted to make sure. This was your ask. So that's why I'm just, now you want to change that. Okay, so I guess we can leave it off as a formal agenda item.
I'm confused because the last couple of meetings, they've been thrown on at the last minute. And again, tonight, we're throwing on something at the last minute.
Okay,
Okay, so I'm unprepared for what's gonna happen here. So how is that any different from what she's asking?
well, when we had this discussion before, we said that we can add things to the in-camera, but we wanted to make sure that it was discussed so that it was known whether it was appropriate to go into camera. That was it, just to be a heads up beforehand. Things coming from the CAO, he's got that prepared. So there, I see that as the difference, CAO adding things, councillors adding things. That's where I'm seeing the difference. And we talked about that if we wanted to put things on, councillors, or myself could not add last minute. We had that discussion, and that's what I thought council wanted to do. That's why I'm asking what council would like to do here, because council said, yes, that's the fair way to do it.
So if I could, through the chair, under the MGA, the CEO is required to provide advice to council. I have advice on time-sensitive issues. I'm asking to inform council of these issues tonight. If council wishes me not to comply with the MGA and my responsibilities as the CEO, please direct so.
And I guess the other condition for adding things to the agenda is this time sensitive? And I would ask that of Councillor Martins, is this a time sensitive thing? If it's not dealt with tonight and it's dealt with next time, is that an issue?
No, it is not time sensitive.
So then we can add it to the next agenda, and that would be fine. Okay, so we need a motion to adopt the agenda. Anybody like to make that motion? Councillor Danaka?
I'll make that motion with the addition of the in-camera item.
All right, all in favor? Oh, sorry. Oh, I can, yeah, thanks. Before we adopt that, there is one, call it an addition. We've got a scheduled delegation coming in at 7 p.m. and that's MLA Sinclair will be joining us at 7. Thanks for that reminder.
So where's that going?
What's that?
Where's that going on?
It will be a scheduled
Oh, yeah.
delegation, but at 7 p.m., not at 6 p.m. Thank you. We'll get that one. So So we have that other addition to add to it. So can we adjust your motion, Councillor Donato?
With the, I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented with the 2 additions.
Okay, yeah. All in favor? Carried. And do we have any public delegations?
Yes, please.
You know the drill, Chris?
You betcha. I'm just going to read the dates. Hey, good evening, Mayor and Council. I just to take a minute or two. Here's Chair of Beautification. On July the 28th, I sent emails to all of you on some requests for beautification regarding light up and late fall cleanup. On July the 29th, I come to the office and dropped off 4 hard copies of all the letters at the front office, and a young gentleman received them. Beautification met on August the 21st, and we did not receive a response to any of our requests. And here we are today on August the 27th with still no response. Many of them are referring to asks regarding High Prairie Light Up. We really need some answers or response, please, by, look up our September meeting, sorry. On Wednesday, September 20th is our next meeting. That's when light up plans really kick into gear. If we don't hear from you guys in our requests, we're gonna have to go to Plan B on several matters. We want to grow High Prairie Light Up this year in not a really aggressive nature, but we would like to have public skating, the sports palace, and kids games in Gordon Buchanan Center, and have Santa again in the auditorium, in addition to some of the other things we've got planned. But if we don't hear pretty soon, we got to scrap them for a year, because time will be running short. 2 months is not a lot of time. We've laid a lot of the groundwork, and so my request is to please give me an answer by our meeting on September 21st. That's all, so.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly do that, and we can ensure that that's added to our next agenda.
Okay, any reason why it's not on the last 2 agendas?
Can I offer a suggestion? Numerous of the requests are administrative matters, so I'd ask council just, I'll review those communications if they're appropriate to be considered by council. Then I'll bring a report back to council. But I believe a significant number of those issues are administrative, and administration will be contacting and communicating directly with beautification on those matters.
Okay, good, that's good to hear, by September 21st.
By the end of this week, yes, we'll make that commitment.
Okay, thanks, that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
And in our next meeting, September 21st, that's when a lot of the plans for Light Up will really kick into gear, and you're all invited, 6 p.m. at the Southeast News office. Okay, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Well, I got one. Sorry.
All right, and I guess Sheldon, are you interested in
I am.
addressing council? All right.
Sheldon Bossert, and a resident of High Prairie. So I'm here tonight as a follow-up to some of the emails that I have sent over the last number of weeks, and I'm still perplexed by a couple of things, and I'm not meaning this as a question and answer, and if you're willing to answer, then I'd be more than happy to hear. So I have asked about back alleys, and I've asked about derelict vehicles. I'm not even going to talk about the pool pass piece, because my understanding that something may be in the process there. At the last time that I spoke, Councillor Dunn had mentioned something around the bylaw being a little bit waffly in terms of what it speaks to with back alleys. And I agree in reading, it does need some work. There was some discussion that from your mayor that this is going to be taken to an open house session. I don't have any details. I'm not sure if there are any details yet of when that will happen. Hopefully it will happen while the grass is still 4 feet tall and people can deal with it and it doesn't go into the winter. My concern is that if that's waffly, I still don't understand why the derelict vehicles are not being dealt with. That is clearly in your bylaw. It is clearly written in where it talks about the presence of derelict vehicles or derelict equipment. It gives the direct definition in section 2.7, and I have given you countless examples and videos in emails. And by saying we're going to take this to an open house to discuss it when it is clearly in your bylaw, I understand taking back alleys to an open house because it is kind of on the fence according to the way your bylaw is written. Derelict vehicles is not on the fence. Derelict vehicles is black and white. There are countless numbers of them around town. And I don't understand why this is not being dealt with head on. And it feels like it's just being brushed under the carpet, pushed to the side. We'll talk to the residents. My question then is, why is it even a bylaw? Why is it even written into your bylaws about how derelict vehicles are dealt with? Thank you.
You want to respond, or you don't?
Sure, I can start through the chair, which again, at the last meeting, I was briefing council on an update, and that was just as you were walking in, so you probably never heard the most of the update, but it is on the last tape if you wish to review it. Overall, the issue is, I agree with you, it's in the bylaw. The issue is the standard that the town's applied over the last 20 years. I strongly recommend that the council that an educational approach be taken rather than a hard hammer of something being in the bylaw that's not been enforced. So it's clear that certain aspects of the bylaw have not been reinforced. Part of it is a resourcing issue with the town. Council approves these bylaws. Previous administrators have not been that proficient in saying what the consequences of enforcement would be and capacity to enforce the bylaws. That will not happen under my watch. So we'll be undertaking review of the bylaw, looking at enhanced communication to the ratepayers, and if we are to, subsequently enforce it to the standard that you are seeking, not necessarily what the bylaw says. So an option will maybe changing the bylaw to soften the wording, or getting input from the public. But before we do any amendments to the bylaw, we'd like to undertake a thorough process, not a knee-jerk reaction. I don't mean that in a derogatory way in any means. So that's where we stand. It would be, from my perspective, a significant change in service standards that would impact approximately 150 residents this year that have been issued warnings and letters under the bylaw process. So that's it in a nutshell. So it is a big change for the town, and we should undertake a process of engagement of the residents to ensure transparency and informative decisions by council.
Okay, thank you. So if I may ask something in regard to that, what is the plan for the open house? Is there a timeline? Will it occur this summer? Is there information about that?
I'm waiting for direction from council on that. So I've raised it with council. Traditionally, we've had it in the fall, and we've also had it at various other open house forums, such as registration night or the like. Council's also directed that the consultation process happen on the budget, and that will likely occur in late September, October. So that would probably be the timeline. I would suggest that these broader issues be brought into that discussion and dialogue with the residents.
I can maybe add one other thing. I was going to ask with council, we have a open house regarding water restrictions coming up. September 9th, I believe, is the date. And I mean, that is the topic that was selected for that date. But maybe we can, I was going to see if we wanted to add a second topic. And it was going to be the back alleys and stuff on that. But there's an issue with getting it addressed and getting some input there. but also, not confusing the topic, so, like, what's the main topic that we're gonna be discussing that night? Are we gonna be having multiple topics, and what would the duration be? So that would be something that council can look at, if it would be covered in that evening, or if we wanted to look at another evening for that topic.
Okay, sorry.
If I could, the lead player is on vacation currently and will be on vacation, so September 9th to deal with that particular topic. I would advocate council consider it as part of the broader budget consultation process, because there is some homework to be done.
Regarding the cost implications of
Changing. So there's two other things that are council's, well, one other thing that will also impact this is in the tendering of the garbage collection council's directive, bids be received on providing back alley garbage collection. That would also have implications on some of the issues the ratepayer is discussing today in terms of the cleanliness of the backyards, not to address the derelict vehicles, but there may be some cost implications if council's moving back to potentially garbage collection and back laneways and the like. So that will again drive budgetary implications. And regardless, even if council does not amend the bylaw, there will be budgetary implications if the level of service and timelines related to the bylaw are, if generally if you have a bylaw or something of that nature, usually within the bylaw, service standards are applied. Council hasn't articulated what service standard they want necessarily in terms of cycle times and the like related to the bylaw. So that would be helpful for staff if council was to articulate that, and then staff could relate to council the cost implications of, providing that level of service. Right now, as I mentioned at the last meeting, it's a myth that we have 2 bylaw enforcement officers. In essence, we have 1.1 bylaw officers. We do bylaw enforcement and traffic control for numerous other municipalities on a cost recovery basis. So they're not available in town per se, because we have contractual relationships. Changing service standards may mean we have to give up revenues, or it may mean we have to acquire additional resources. But again, it gets back to that basic question when it always comes to budget, is what service levels does council want to deliver in the community, and what are the implications, and what bylaws or other policies of council have to be amended.
Okay, so I would just encourage council to get bold and start talking about it, because it feels like we are dragging heels badly on this, because this has been 2 months now, and yeah, I just encourage you to be bold and discuss. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. All right, so with that, we'll move on to item number 5. Can I get a motion on this? Our meeting minutes. Oh, okay. I hear we have a couple of corrections that you'd like to make first before we get started, so perhaps you can let us know what they are.
Yes, the first one is a correction and a question for attendance, where it says absent Mayor Panasic. We want to put absent with notice or without notice, or just leave it as absent.
In the past, I don't think we've identified if it was with notice or without notice.
Not regularly, no.
Yeah, so why would we change it?
Okay, we'll keep that one.
That's my opinion, but what does council think? Should we be saying if it's no?
Through the chair, it's been a mixed bag.
Oh,
So we're looking for clarity. It's not specified in procedural bylaw, but some councillors do give notice, some don't give notice. So it gives the impression on the agenda without that notation, it may be misinterpreted in the minutes.
So, any thoughts on that before we move on? Or just leave with or without notice on?
It makes sense to do that way. To say with notice, it doesn't make sense to me.
To say with or
Yeah.
without?
I mean, that's not gonna really make a difference to the agenda or to the minutes, whether it's with or without notice. I mean, to me, that's kind of a minor issue.
It should be, but
We can certainly say, indicate whether it's with or without, if anybody's missing.
Well, then shouldn't we take this to our policies or our bylaws then? Instead of changing it here tonight?
Well,
It's not under,
it's not in our bylaw per se, one way or the other, and I haven't really paid attention if it said with or without notice in the past.
I've never seen it stated with or without notice. And sometimes we have intentions of showing, but things happen and we can't, so, like, I don't know.
it's clear from my perspective, the mayor, when a member of council is absent, the first thing that the mayor does is ask me if I receive notice. And generally, if I do, I say I do, if I didn't, I say, no, I had. So again, it's up to council, but
I mean, I would absolutely hope that anytime somebody's gonna be missing a meeting, that they notify, right? That's just courtesy, if you're not gonna be there to notify. It's a quick email, a quick text, and anytime, to say, yeah, you're not gonna be able to make it, even if something comes up late, just so we know and aren't wondering if somebody's coming in, or, so I would encourage that to happen, for sure.
Is Scott gonna be in person?
No, online.
Oh, okay, never mind, because I was thinking to go get my camera and get a picture, but that'll be okay. All right, thank you,
So
thank you.
we can, we could bring this up at, I'm not sure, we could, like you said, bring it up at a policy meeting, whether we want to add this in, that notification will be indicated on, just to make sure it's clear in the future. But what I've heard from others is saying, yeah, we'd rather see it on there, if there's notice or not notice. I'm not it doesn't matter to me terribly, but would encourage people to give notice, otherwise it doesn't look that good if it shows without notice.
Yeah, that's fine for people who have jobs that are 8 till 4, but some people have other jobs where they're unable to make contact and had full intention of showing up, but were unable to, so you have to look at the whole picture. So when people have to leave because of a phone call or something, are we gonna note that?
technically, it should be noted in the minutes, yes.
So-and-so left the meeting.
So administration, since it's silent administration, would refer to noted as with or without notice until the procedural bylaws change, so administration is charged with preparing the minutes. So that would be the recommendation from the CEO.
So we can, I'm totally fine, really either way, but I'd put it down with notice, and then, I think it would. And if not, if we really don't want it that way, we can address that in the procedural bylaw and change it and have more discussion, but for now, we'll keep it in, and then if we want to take it out, we'll change the procedural bylaw. Anything else, Haley, for changes?
Yes. 14.1, High Prairie, I just put High Prairie capital, the Prairie, it doesn't have a capital on that one. So that has been changed, and 16.3.1, it says Deputy Mayor Martins, that's been changed to Councillor Martins.
Sorry, 16.1.
0.3.1.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay. I'll open it up to council if they had any things. Go ahead, Councilor.
On the attendance sheet as well, at the top there, it's, deputy mayor.
Yeah.
Switched as well on that one. I think that was everything.
All right. Councilor Stenhouse?
So for scheduled delegations, if I recall, it was just Jennifer Churchill that presented, not Kim Hughes.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't
Okay.
here, was it just the one
Yeah.
person here? Okay, just one.
So as the same thing, we'll just say, was not in attendance for those kinds of things, because they were both scheduled.
Well, you just say that you would just know that Jennifer Churchill attended. And then if we're changing how we're writing this, and you could say Kim Hughes did not attend without notice.
The correction on that, she did give notice, so it should
Yeah.
read as postponed. That was postponed,
Kim used it,
right?
but Jennifer was here.
And postponed or rescheduled, whatever you wish. Council wishes, that is.
Were they listed as two separate delegations or one?
They applied as
They were
one.
one, okay, that's what I thought, so. So we could just leave it as Jennifer Churchill is the only one that presented, right?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on these minutes? All right, seeing none. Can we get a motion with these amendments? Councilor Wakefield.
As amended.
All right, I see there was Councilor Stenhouse who's making a grimace.
Yeah, I kind of missed something. See, at the very end, there was an in-camera session added. Oh, never mind. Okay.
All right, all in favor? Carried. Moving, business arising. Now we have the Alberta municipalities resolutions, this is arising because it was discussed last meeting. Okay, well, this is under 6.1, there's business arising from the minutes.
It's just a general, it wasn't at the last meeting, but there was discussion at a prior council meeting on the resolutions.
Oh, okay, so it could have been, could have been new business, but it's kind of a follow-up. But before we do that, is there anything else in the minutes that people wanted to follow up on? Any issues? I did have, Councilor Deneka.
No issue, but I want to thank Public Works, so the CAO who managed to address Carol's issues with the the demarcation of where the lanes were in those areas behind the hospital and by UFA. I see that there's painted lines in the middle, so that should address the traffic just going wherever they wanna go, so good job on that.
All right, thanks for that. I know I had a couple, that was one of my questions that I wanted to just follow up on is, because I wasn't sure what there was road safety concerns and, was there anything from those delegations that we needed to follow up on? That was my question, just as a follow-up, and I know we heard from, Sheldon was there, Carol was there, CMP were there, and we also had the scheduled delegation of ANCA. I know that there was, being on ANCA's board, they were asking if we wanted to, participate with that regional tourism society, but they didn't finish up on it. That was sort of their intent of coming. I know they were gonna ask about that. I don't know if they did.
I believe they're scheduled for September 10th, is it? No, the first meeting in
Yep, September 10th.
I believe it's September 10th.
So there really isn't any follow-up that we need to do at this time on any of these. I mean, other than we know Sheldon said, and we're working on it.
I could just remind council, if there's resolutions that are made, they then go on the action list, the CO's action list, so they're captured that way.
Yeah.
In terms of follow-up, but there was no direction from council or resolutions approved at the last meeting.
Okay, so we'll move on then to item 6.1. Get a motion on this one.
I'll move that we accept this as information and take it with us to Red Deer.
All right. One of the things that I think that we should discuss for sure is how we want to present before our resolution at council, just so that we're clear who's going to present and make sure that that person is prepared and ready to address that. Because you have your, what is it, 2 minutes? I don't think you have 2 minutes to.
2 minutes, and then I think you get 60 seconds to rebuttal at the end.
Yeah.
I think this will pass with 97% in favor.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna put that in as my prediction.
That's your prediction.
That's my prediction, yeah. I'm not putting any money on it.
So, I guess for me, we just want to make sure we're knowing who's going to present. James, I know you brought this one forward. Do you want to address it, or do you
I can do that.
you want to be the one chatting? If you're,
I can, I'm a little shy in front of crowds, and I'm not real confident in front of a microphone, but, I can give it a whirl. Yes, I'm going to present.
okay. So we have a plan there. You'll
Yeah, I'll
come up with.
I'll come up with a 2-minute word track and then a rebuttal at the end. But like I said, I'm predicting a 97% pass.
Practice so you don't get cut off halfway through.
Yeah. You know what we did?
They're hard and fast, 2 minute.
Bang,
Yeah.
yeah. I also am fairly confident that I'm loud enough that I might be able to be heard if there's a couple extra words to be said, but that's what we did with 4-H public speaking back in the day, so.
Okay. And then the other resolution, any more discussion on just reading through these? And I know at Alberta municipalities, everybody votes separately, but we may have questions or something that we want to bring up. I guess if anybody has those questions, they could go up and speak on it.
Well, I mean, anybody
absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a big document and there's lots in there and, you know, we've got 4 weeks really to make notes and go up, and I think if you go up this week, you get 1 minute. If you're for or against, and, you know, do the practice.
Okay. Anybody else want to address this topic? We have a motion to receive, I see Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, no, I won't be there, so wouldn't be able to address any of the topics. But it is interesting reading through it.
Yeah, given, I can't remember who was all going to be there, but if you're not going to be there and you have any questions or concerns with any of them, let me know and I can make sure that they're asked, or I can listen and you know, if we get an answer, somebody might give the answer that you're looking for. So yeah, if you have anything like that, let me know and we can bring your thoughts forward if needed. Okay, we have a motion to receive for information. All in favor? Carried. Moving ahead to new business, item 8.1, South River Crossing rehabilitation. And I'll get a motion on this. Motion. Okay, just to get the ball rolling, I'll make the motion that council approve the replacement of the South River Crossing for an estimated cost of $314,000 and the funding to be taken from the restricted general operating reserve. Okay.
I apologize, but could I suggest council has one other recommendation, that this be referred to the County of Big Lakes for consideration under the ICF funding envelope.
Okay, I would make that amendment to my motion. And with that, I see that Public Works Superintendent is anxious to speak on this, and it'll give us some more information, so I'll let you get started and we'll go from there.
Okay, council, I think everybody's well aware that we did have a break on that line on May the 6th. We took a while to find it simply because of the location of it, and we installed a new valve that would isolate completely that river crossing without affecting any of the users. During that time, West Fraser was out of water. The entire west end was out of water for the time that it took us to get this valve installed. We discussed as a group, the shop, the best ways of trying to figure out what had happened. In the end, we figured sending a camera down the line to see what the cause of the rupture, the roughly location of the rupture would be. We did go down, cut into the pipe, went down the pipe, and we got to the level of the river, and we went underwater. Within the side of that pipe, it's evident that as the river goes up, so does the level of that pipe. So that tells us that it is broke below the river at some point. We have no clue as to where. Doing measurements from where it went underwater. The camera went underwater, which was at the level of the river. It's somewhere below that point because we didn't see any evidence of anything being broke at that point. After we discussed with MPA, due to the age of the line, it is, and the technicality, it's well beyond Public Works' capabilities of fixing. So with that being said, to add longevity and assurance to continual supply, it would be best that a new line be directionally drilled across the river and tied into the existing infrastructure. In 2018, council did drill a second line, or approved in a contract to put a second line across there, which is a good thing that they did, because otherwise we'd be sitting with our hands tied. And a lot of people without water, especially with one of our biggest industrial users on that side of the river.
Okay, so I'll throw it open to council for questions. Councilor Waco.
Brent, the pipe that broke, is 40 years or whatever. What kind of pipe is this? Is it PVC or is it that old crap that we see elsewhere in town?
Cast iron?
Oh, it's cast iron?
No, it's not cast iron.
No, okay.
But talking with people that were there in the time that this was installed, is before my time.
Jesus,
That
that's
there's
a long time.
a section of steel pipe that was placed under the river. It was open cut going across there. Back in the day, environmental approvals and all of that stuff were not what they are today. And my suspicion is that that portion has ruptured.
And just as a follow-up on there, there's a lot of open land over there that is potential for expansion, residential and commercial and whatnot. The line that we're gonna be putting in, is it going to be sufficient to handle the volume of water that'll go through there for these possible expansions?
Between the two, the lines that go across there, yes, it would be.
Okay.
We're considering increasing the size to a 12-inch instead of a 10-inch at that point, so that it would supply well into the future.
Excellent. Thank you, Brent.
Councilor Tanaka.
So I guess this is more of a question to the CAO as opposed, or you may know, Vern. Are there any grants available that would offset this, that we could apply to mitigate the costs to the town?
I'll refer that to the CAO.
And we're pushing this as an emergency repair, so we are at risk of, if the other pipe goes down, there'll be no water being available to users in the western area. So generally, we would have to apply for the grant.
Okay,
If the work
so
starts.
it's sort of a time-sensitive thing as well.
Fairly time sensitive, so
Okay.
there is no sort of emergency funding grant programs. Generally, if we were to apply, we would probably have to defer the construction to 225, 226.
But as the CAO mentioned, he asked for an amendment to the motion to be taking this to the intermunicipal. Is that not what you said?
Yeah,
Taking it to
for
present
funding
it.
under the ICF funding
Yes.
agreement with the county. So I will be at the county tomorrow. I've already included in a letter that I'm presenting to the county tomorrow, asking this to, if council adopts this program tonight, they would be apprised that this is an amendment to the 2024 capital program and is the project that is eligible under ICF funding. So,
Is this the line that services the county?
correct.
The ones across the river services all of the West End and the county building. It does. And 2 water co-ops, yeah.
Councilor Stenhouse?
Okay, it's not for you, Vern. Should I wait because it's not for Vern?
Well, it's
I'm
the
pretty
topic
much-
that we
okay.
need to address.
So, do we know the balance in that account, in the restricted general operating reserve?
It's approximately 3.9 million. But for clarity, also step out for a minute to get to the exact number, but it's in that range, in the $4 million range.
So is this just, is this a designated water reserve? Or do we pull other funds from this reserve?
I'd like to report back on council on that. So the council philosophy is we do have three numerous dedicated reserves, water being one of them. The balance in the water reserve is roughly 1.1 million. But I would recommend that council reconsider reallocating out of a portion of the money that's sitting in the unallocated reserve to specific purposes for future projects based on the capital forecast. So in my opinion, I know the rationale was, you know, if the county sees money in this reserve, they'll say they won't fund it. But the basic premise of the ICF is based on a funding formula that's predicated on our capital plan for the municipality. So again, we're trying to change that protocol in the agreement, which is now going into some of the other items I wish to discuss in camera. So I'll do that there, but yes, there is more than adequate monies in the town's reserves to undertake this project. Does it have to come out of this particular reserve? No, but as you can sense by the wording, restricted general capital reserve is a misnomer because it's not restricted or intended for any designated purpose of council. So it should be retitled to unrestricted general operating reserve. And again, it's called operating reserve, but its primary focus in the past has been to fund capital initiatives. Obviously, having an operating reserve of $4 million is excessive. We do have a tax rate stabilization reserve, but so again, there's some cleanup in the wording. And the wording is misrepresentative of the intentions and use council has done with this reserve in the past.
So, just so I understand, so this is a water issue. So why would we not take it from our water reserve?
Because the balance in there is intended for other specific projects. So this is going to get confusing, but in the financial statements, commitments council's made in the budget are not reflected until the money's drawn. So we have an upgrade to our water plant scheduled. Part of the funding for that isn't drawn yet out of the reserve is for that water plant. So internally, we reflect the commitments council's made, but on the financial statements, those commitments are not reflected. So there's a disconnect there. So I'm recommending the council, given the number of water projects that we'll have in 225 budget, there won't be enough money to undertake those projects. So we have this $4 million unallocated. My intent is to make recommendations to council to dispense that to leading projects on a priority basis. And likely in the 2025 budget deliberations, suggest to council that some of that money be reallocated and tied to specific projects that council wants to see happen in the next 3-year horizon. So those projects would be funded totally.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, I need to think about that. Well, okay, just one quick question while I think. So is this coming out of operating or capital? It says restricted general operating reserve. So is there a typo there?
No, there's no typo, and it's sort of academic because it is a reserve and council can use that reserve for any purpose it wants. Operating projects, capital projects. Again, it's a misnomer and I'm trying to correct it.
Go ahead, Dawn.
So this amount that's there, the 314,000, is that, how close are we, like it says, estimated cost? Did you say MPE did their
Yes,
thing?
We do have detailed cost estimates from MP on the That's what the 314 is coming from. So yes, it's backed up by
Okay,
detailed project estimates.
okay, that was my question, is it sort of the exact, or is it just like a, well, we think it's gonna be this, okay.
Yeah, and the exact won't know until
Right.
it's tendered. So,
Right.
Councillor Yushisha.
So you said already, but, so it's being looked at for the potential bigger line to be put in? Or sorry, because I know you mentioned something there.
Yes, we're looking at getting prices on replacing, like with the size of the pipe, because the drilling is gonna be the same, no matter what. We'll just get the cost figure for the pipe to see, but we'll try to keep it under the 314,000, of course.
Yeah. And there'll be directional drill.
Yeah.
There now in today's game. Okay, thanks.
Did you have more, Councillor?
I did, but I want to give everybody else a chance before
Go ahead with your additional questions.
Okay, so this is just my thought. Could we not, scrap one of our capital projects to fund this? As in the raw water power backup that would cover this emergency repair we'd have to do? Instead of withdrawing from our reserve?
I'll just speak, yeah, I mean, we could, I mean, that's something that we could do. In my opinion, this is a priority. It's some redundancy in the water line, just so if there is situations like this happen in the future, that we need to get this done. It's, whether we want to reduce something or just add additional capital response, money. I think all of the projects that we approved with capital are ones that we felt we needed, and were justified. So I think this is an additional one that, I'm okay with adding it to, as an addition to what we've already committed. But that's my thoughts, but you're right, we could.
So I'm not saying it's not important, it is very important, and this is what budgeting, and we have to, things come up, so we have to bump stuff.
Again, through the chair, the town does maintain significant reserves. So there are adequate reserves. I can get the list, but off the top of my head, there's roughly 7 million in that range of reserve monies. Those are intended for future capital projects. It could be bumped to 225 and council can take the risk, but it would be a high priority project at 225 that would be funded from the same source that we're recommending today.
Okay, I'm not saying to bump it, I'm saying it needs to be done.
Well,
We can
if this is
remove,
bumped, if this isn't bumped, another project would have to be bumped. It's the same aggregate dollars would have to be moved from. If it's not done, if an item is not done, such as the bank stabilization on the reservoir, it would be, again, another high priority in the 225 budget. The project you're specifically mentioning, in terms of the water backup, was in the top 3 priorities administration brought forward to council. So if you were going to bump something, I think council should review the relative priorities that were presented by administration and make decisions based on informed information.
And that was gonna be my comment, is we set that as a priority for a reason. And so why would we bump it now, when this is less than 10% of one reserve, less than 10%? I think we have to be, yes, we need to be fiscally accountable, but we also need to be diligent in making sure that our, everything is working in our community as well. People are getting water when they're supposed to need water, and that we're not putting others at risk because we're not meeting, infrastructure needs.
I could just make one further point for council's consideration, which council was advised at the last meeting. And the particular council asking the question raised it. Yes, the operating budget is gonna have a significant surplus this year, and the surplus in the operating budget would be enough to fund this particular project. So we would be replenishing the reserve, and it's a timing issue. So at the end of the year, the reserves will be contributed more than this $314,000 that we're taking out, so. And council was apprised of that at the last council meeting.
Call the question.
Do we want to put this on?
No, we're calling the question, we're gonna vote on it, and then we're gonna move on.
Calling the question. All in favor of calling the question? Opposed? No, about calling the question. About just moving ahead. We've had a motion to call the question. Council decides whether we want to stop all discussions on this or not. That's the vote. So I'll ask again, if we're ready, basically to go to vote. All in favor? All right. So the motion was to approve this, motion. All in favor? What's that?
Was that with the
With the,
additional motion of taking it to the ICF?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that motion.
Then I'm in favor of that.
Okay. So that is carried, and we're just waiting for MLA to log in, so we'll take a 10-minute break while we get